What is up, everybody? Hello, it's another beautiful day where we're ranking some PS2 games. I'm Bronson Fiore, and we have a special guest today. He is a car expert for us looking at a car game.
Yes,
Mr.
hello.
Hello, Mr. Anthony Tao.
Hello, greetings, viewers.
Greetings
And salutations.
from the year 2005.
Oh, gee. What was I playing in 2005? Need for Speed Most Wanted? But that's not what we're looking at today.
I have one. I actually think I have. Yeah, I have Most Wanted.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, so, yeah,
um,
but that's probably for a different day, though.
that is.
Uh,
To,
Today's a game that I have actually never played. Okay, so to begin with, I've never owned a PS2, and I
okay.
have not played. I don't think I've played any PS2 games except for which a couple that they remastered on the PS3, so like the God of War collection.
Mm.
And there may be one or two others, I don't know. But I picked a GameCube at the time because I was a Nintendo kid. Uh, Mainly Pokemon, Mario. But yeah, like anything before like stuff before 2007 was kind of like me just playing the same two or three franchises. So despite liking cars a lot, I was mainly playing Need for Speed, not stuff like Gran Turismo.
Mhm.
So I didn't have Gran Turismo till 5, so yeah, so the game we're looking at today is Gran Turismo 4. I don't know if there's any like different flavors of Gran Turismo 4.
Okay. So there is Gran Turismo 4 prologue. That was a thing they did. And then about a year and some change after, they did a special like isolated release called GT4 Online Edition.
That's great. So just let you know, the live stream I'm seeing right now is just your game selection screen. So I'm only seeing the game through the Twitch right now.
What the fuck? Oh, is Discord fucking? Oh, Discord is grabbing the window. Hold the fuck on. Hold on a sec. There we go. There you go. That should fix the problem. That's dumb. Alright.
Um,
Did it
right.
fix?
I just see your icon.
Okay. Oh, you just see my icon. What the
Wait,
fuck?
hang on. Let me click a button. There we go. We're good now.
Okay. There we go. Yep. Jesus Christ. No, I don't have any GT3 data, unfortunately. So this
Oh,
game did.
that's something different. Okay. Okay.
Yes. So if you had Gran Turismo 3 data, the game would go, "Oh, cool. Do you want some extra money and some extra cars to start out with?"
Yeah, it's usually very light though. Because they don't want to give you too much of an advantage, of course, right? But it's like here's some extra pennies that gets you a slightly nicer thing to start with.
So this game actually had like a bunch like so um this was a trend for Gran Turismo, as I'm sure you know from 5. This game got delayed like twice before coming out,
Yeah.
and it promised to have an online mode, but that did not happen. There was no online mode. It launched without it. In fact, it was one of the big things critics kind of bagged on it for.
This is
Was
2005, right?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, Xbox Live was very much you couldn't really ignore it anymore.
Right, and not only could you not ignore it, it was even on PS2. Like PS2 had online. You could play
Right.
some
Right.
online PS2 games.
Yeah, because like when online did arrive with Gran Turismo 5, it was already outdated because it was using lobbies, whereas like Forza 3 at the time was already using matchmaking. Um, this intro is exactly the same style. So I'm actually trying to figure out how Gran Turismo hasn't changed going from 4 to 7. And currently this intro is pretty much the same. It's just
It
missing the rock thing unless we skipped it.
yeah. So it does a rock thing with Van Halen, though I'm gonna go in and So this was one of the few PS2 games that supported 1080i.
Ow. Like, is that native 1080i?
Yep, yep.
Sheesh. The magic, man.
Sure did. Um,
Gran Turismo 5 also ran at like full 1080p when everything else was 720 or less.
uh, yeah, and this game also supported hooking four PS2s together to do LAN.
You can land, but you can't go online. Hmm.
Yep. Um, yeah. So no, that's not it. Hold on. There we go. Sorry, I forgot that I'm on a PS2, so triangle is back. All right. So yeah, very bare bones. Hey, arcade mode, Gran Turismo mode, just like career mode, replays, etc. So we'll
Great, let's go to career mode. Yeah.
let's go. Let's hit that career mode. I will say that I played the crap out of this game back in the day. So yeah, they have this weird kind of menu where it's like, you can go to different countries and different kinds of events, but like it's like, hey, here's the home. If you have GT3 data, you go to the license center, use car room, stuff like that. It's very much that old kind of experience of the era of
Oh,
here.
hang on. I could help you pick your first car here.
Well, we also have another used car showroom to stare at real quick.
Right.
So,
let's look through what's available here first. You got 10,000 credits. Let's see, 1990 RX-7, that's a good one. Let's see what's further down.
Ooh, a Honda Civic. Hello there.
Yeah, but RX-7's rear-wheel drive and has more horsepower.
You're correct.
Oh, the Prelude is cheaper and has almost as much horsepower. Front-wheel drive, though.
Alright.
Dear goodness, Nissan Skyline GTR for 11,000 credits. What kind of madness is that? Little did they know how the world today is.
Yeah, could you imagine buying a relatively decent car for this price?
I mean, like, this is kind of like the weird effect where, like, a car is new, everybody wants it, but when it's 10 years old, people don't care about it because it's old, but it's not old enough to be nostalgic. And then after about 20 or 30 years after it's gone, then everybody wants to come back to it. Like, this happened with muscle cars. Is currently happening with 80s and 90s era cars. So you have like this huge resurgence of like 80s and 90s stuff because now like a 1994 Honda Civic is actually worth sizable amounts of money if it isn't like a rust bucket. So
it looks like everything in the no, not everything is priced.
Hang on. This is something I deeply miss about the GT games since, since Sport and 7 happened, is that it was extremely Japanese centric, but they had so many different trim levels of each car. And so this is like back in the day when they didn't corner themselves into having to detail everything outside inside to perfection, which is extremely time consuming and resource intensive. But back in the day, they would just be like, hey, here's the faster version of the MR2, but here's also the more base version of the MR2. They put like so many trims in, and this is how you end up with like 30 Nissan Skylines in this game.
Well,
and 3 1997 Toyota MR2s, for example. So like there was just so much choice, and everyone's just like, but now in reality, vast majority of racing games don't do this. People just want to drive the R34 Skyline GTR V-Spec 2 NERV. That's the only trim that matters for a vast majority of people, and that's good enough. They don't care as much about the difference in the M-Spec or V-Spec 1 or the regular GTR. But, oh man, I was going to pick something, but I guess I went on too much. Good pick, though. It's a good pick, though. That is a good pick. So, I guess that's about close to maxing your budget. But anyways, Honda Civic Type R, very good pick. That's also in Gran Turismo 7. Yeah, so you got like all these, but the thing is, for people like me, it geeks me out because I'm just like, oh my goodness, they put regular plebeian versions of cars in this game. So that's nice.
So one thing that I remember, so you brought up the interiors. That was actually another. So this game launched like right before Forza 1. And Forza 1 had like full-on collision modeling along with along with like interiors.
This car's gearing is garbage. Anyways,
Woo, bronze.
good enough.
But yeah, so it had full-on it had full-on like Forza had like this really good online system. You can customize the cars, and it kind of like if you were a person who wanted like not as big of a car list, but more features, Forza might have been the better game for you, in all honesty.
Well, the thing is that Gran Turismo had huge quantity, but the issue is much like in Gran Turismo 5, you had 3 or 4 pages of Nissan Skyline GTRs. Do people really care as up? You bumped the count.
Damn it.
Fail. The problem with the Gran Turismo car list is that it geeks out people like me who love caring about those little details and likes more poverty spec models of cars instead of just the flagship. But the problem is that that is a very small minority. Vast majority of people just want a Nissan Skyline or like one per generation of that car. They don't want like the 5 or 6 variations of it. In
Right.
which the difference is so imperceptible that you can't feel it through a video game. I'm sure they accounted for that in Gran Turismo, and that's great detailing. But Polyphony has always had this issue of not really getting their priorities entirely straight. They would be really good at specific things, but then you would have something like Forza Motorsport 3, which is an overall better game. Like Forza Motorsport 3 had a very good car list because it had a lot of iconic cars that normies want, but also what car guys like: Lotus Carlton, Porsche Cayman S, all that kind of stuff. Gran Turismo just gave you like 2 pages of like Fords, but they will give you like 8 pages of Nissans. That's not a very balanced car list.
No, and you know, and I think that that was like a critique back then, right?
Yes.
Like it was like,
Well, the thing was, like, Gran Turismo was just so good that everybody was okay with it, but, you know, once stuff like Forza actually showed up, it was kind of like, this game's really good at very specific things, but Forza is a better, much more rounded package. Alright, you're doing your first race with your used Honda Civic Type R that you bought for 9,900 credits, because that car is worth, like, what, 40 grand today? Fuck.
God,
Sorry, excuse my language.
it's wild when
You forgot to change the oil, dear goodness.
I sure did. Not like I had the money to do that anymore.
Yeah, just blow it all. Well, at least it's a Honda. You could buy a BMW, the engine would blow up immediately if you didn't fix everything before taking it to a track day.
Yeah. So one thing about this game,
It does look pretty good. It looks, you know, very Gran Turismo-like, just older.
Yeah. Well,
But it doesn't look ugly though. It doesn't look ugly. PS1 Gran Turismo. Every time I see footage from that game, it's just so pixelated and just. Ugh.
Well, so an interesting thing about every game on ranking the PS2 is we're running these through an emulator. And we are playing all these games in 4K. Every single one. Which probably smooths out some of those rough edges. You obviously still notice it in like the numbers and in the menus because those can't be upscaled. But anything that's like a 3D asset, it's getting the upres treatment. And this was definitely one of the better looking PS2 games, and I want to say it was the second or third best selling PS2 game. So,
Yeah, that's the thing about Gran Turismo though, is like if I asked somebody what is the best selling game ever on the PlayStation 1, they would say, oh, it'll be Final Fantasy 7, right? Well, no, it was Gran Turismo 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think it was 2, but it was one of the 2 Grand Turismo.
Yeah, same thing with PlayStation 2. The best selling game on PlayStation 2 was not Final Fantasy 10.
It was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, but 2 and 3 were the Gran Turismo games. So yeah. Oh, that was already 2 laps. Oh, son of a bitch. Okay.
Psycho. Product placement already.
It's really interesting playing this game, and you kind of see how little Gran Turismo's changed in some ways. Like, yes, it's definitely changed like a lot, especially in terms of visual quality, but also like the way the replays function, like the feel of the game is better in newer games, but it's like not
Yeah, but a lot of this, like, if you played any of the more recent Gran Turismo games, like I have, like I didn't show up till 5 in
right.
2010. So this game is already 5 years old by the time I showed up to that. But like, I played a good amount of Gran Turismo 7 today.
Mm.
I'd look at this and be like, oh yeah, this is like very much the same layouts and general sound effects and design philosophy and whatever as, well, 7. It's just 7 has the issue of they gotta model every car perfectly, which is beautiful. It's gorgeous.
And the
Looks like it's sitting in my
interiors.
yeah, and the interiors are gorgeous, and the driving dynamics are so good, but they don't have a lot of what people are looking for. And the issue with its competitor is that Forza is not very. I don't think Forza is very good anymore. Motorsport. Forza Motorsport is not very good. It's very bland, and yes, they have a much more comprehensive car list, but it a lot of those cars look pretty old and kind of ugly because they were kind of carried over from maybe as far back as Forza 3 and 4, but never got a good visual update. So yeah, Forza is not really a competitor anymore. So yeah, Gran Turismo 3 A spec was the second best PS2 selling games ever, 14.89 million.
Yeah, what was fourth? Third?
Yeah, it was third at 11.76. Then you had Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Final Fantasy X at 5 at a mere 8.5 million. So like Gran Turismo 3, or at least Gran Turismo 4, sold over 3 million copies more than Final Fantasy X.
You wanna know what's crazy about? Oh shit!
Well, you didn't stuff it into a wall at least. That's good.
I mean, even if I did, the car wouldn't blow up or anything. So.
Yeah, well, a lot of racing games don't do that.
Well, not blow up, but like
Damage.
Forza even back then had a damage model. But once again, Forza coming out 3 months after this made this game look bad in retrospect. Because Forza had a damage model and this really good online mode, and just and it also added some newbie-friendly features, like Forza has that really fine difficulty tuning. This game obviously does not. This game doesn't even have driving lines; they don't exist.
Yeah, I think that might have been something they added later. They added it in the newer ones.
They added it in 5. They saw what Forza did and they added it in 5.
Five was a mess because they were trying to do too many things at once. They tried to do the grand, car enthusiast thing. They tried to make it like an upmarket game, but then they also were trying to chase Forza, but then they also had to use the capabilities of the PS3 because it is such a big deal for the PlayStation.
Well, I remember for years GT5 was like the butt of jokes because it was like, when the hell is this game coming?
I mean, how many demo discs did they put out of the thing? There was Prologue, but then there was like 2 or 3 other HD demos they were putting out before that.
So I remember this. They put out at the launch. So you had to be at the launch of the PS3, and then within the first 2 months, it was Gran Turismo HD Concept. Then after HD Concept, they put out Prologue, and then they had like some other thing that floated around international markets and trade shows, I believe. And then finally, you got GT5 4 years after the console launched. And I liked GT5. It was a gorgeous game, and it did 3D. Like I had one of those PlayStation 3D displays, and I tried Gran Turismo in 3D, and it was really cool. And Gran Turismo is always pushing insane tech. Their tech team seems real magical a lot of the time.
Yeah, but this was kind of a case of that tech does take a huge amount of time and resources to make. And 5 really much showed that because you had the premium cars, which are absolutely gorgeous. Looks like the thing is sitting on your driveway. And then you have the standard cars, which is basically which are basically cars ported from Gran Turismo 4.
And then upscale. Yeah.
And so they say like we've got over 1,000 cars, but if you look at them, you realize only 200 of them are actually premium, and the other 800 came from Gran Turismo 4.
So,
That's not good. So when you have a Lamborghini Countach and it looks kind of out of place with the rest of the game, actually.
to be fair, I have some extra insight into why the Gran Turismo development cycles are so long. I think I've definitely told you this story off there. I've never told it to you
Right.
on air.
Right.
I was part of an interview of the creator of Gran Turismo when we worked at the old outlet, and I was the cameraman, and we were trying to get interviews all throughout the day with the guy, and we finally did. But we noticed every time, and he was doing presentations all day. So we'd do a Gran Turismo Sport presentation, and then, walk around, and then go smoke. Do a Gran Turismo, and just whenever this dude was not doing a presentation or an interview, he was smoking. So it got to the point where Thomas and I, the guy who was hosting that video and I was the cameraman, were like, the reason these games take so long is they're taking smoke breaks all the time. That's the real reason. The real reason that a Gran Turismo game takes 6 years to make is the smoke breaks.
Smoke breaks and too many things to do, right?
Yeah, it's
because like if you look at what Gran Turismo does, is like Gran Turismo, for better or worse, both better and worse, they Polyphony Digital, like they seem to feel that it's also their mission to further the car hobby to the gamer, like the car culture to gamers.
Yes,
And a lot of people buy racing games because they just want to drive a Lamborghini or Bugatti Veyron 230 miles an hour, be happy, and turn the game off, or just ran somebody off the road. But Gran Turismo like, no. We want you to understand cars and how awesome they can be. So they would like throw in all this stuff so that's why they care a lot about modeling cars. That's why they want to represent the cars. That's why they want to put in all these obscure models. Is because, hey, it's not just about dreaming about your Ferrari like in Need for Speed. This is about like, hey, these are regular fast cars that you can probably get.
Well, I'm trying to remember which game started putting like the history of the cars in. I want to say that was 5. Where you would start getting little history tidbits about...
Oh, yeah, they did the museum thing in Sport. They started the museum thing in Sport.
Okay.
But you can still see a chronological car, because there's been history car games before. So, like, one of my most favorite games ever is Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed. That chronicles 50 years of Porsche cars. And that came out in 2000. So that was... I don't know of other... Congratulations in first place. Look at all the pennies you earned.
Yeah, I got a shiny nickel.
Now get that oil change. Your car would go faster.
That's true. I should probably go do that. We'll go do that right now.
Yeah. And wash it too. It'll be shiny.
That costs money.
There were people who asked why Gran Turismo 7 has a bloody oil change thing, and people said it's just tradition. It's just tradition. The game's always had it.
I'm trying to remember where you have to go for that.
Some garage thing, but
anyway, keep going.
This map is weird. Does it geographically even line up correctly?
I don't think it does. But man, you get this funky
Okay, what's
song.
the oil change animation?
Check it out.
Your oil.
Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
Oh, they actually get under the car, just like in 5. It looks the same as 5. Okay, dude drains oil onto his face, got it. And then someone pumps oil from underneath through his... oh, gee. That's not how you do an oil change, man. Open the hood. Okay, well, whatever. Congratulations, in Gran Turismo, your car makes now like 10 more horsepower, which is kind of a big deal when you got a car
How much does a car wash cost? You know what I think? We'll make
like 50 credits. Always has.
Oh yeah,
we'll
get a car wash done.
My
I like
head
this
is
music.
spinning.
It's cheery. Cheery music.
This is probably the most elaborate one I've seen yet. Look at
Washington.
that. A shiny championship white Honda Civic Type R. Nice.
All right,
All
we'll get
right.
back to. So, yeah, no, I.
Well, oh yeah, right. To finish my thought,
Mhm.
yeah. So they want to promote the car culture, which is absolutely fantastic. Not many games do that. A lot of games like Need for Speed and current day Forza, Horizon, and that stuff, they just throw in hot cars. But you don't really have a reason to dream about it. You don't have a reason to nerd out about it. But the thing is, they also try to further so many other things at the same time. They try to do, I think it's called Vision Gran Turismo, where they would go to design studios and major car companies to commission a special concept car for the game, and then they do GT Academy, where it's I guess it's the closest thing you've got to Gran Turismo esports, and if you win, you actually get signed with a pro racing team, and some of them have been reasonably successful in real world racing
and
leagues.
and they
The
they
Gran
they
Turismo
did,
movie is based on one of those stories.
and they
Keyword
helped with the
based.
movie. The studio did help with the movie.
Right. It's based on
So,
a real story because it was actually a thing where like regular people, if you're extremely good at Gran Turismo, like people are like, dude, if you got these dumb setups, why don't you race cars in real life? Well, the thing is, the barrier to entry to racing in real life is absurdly high. Um, and like I know this because I do amateur motorsports, and just being a good driver at the amateur level just isn't good enough. And cars are very expensive. So GT Academy is probably one of those rare avenues where if you really are that good of a driver in a sim setup, you can be signed up to a pro racing team, and some of them have been successful
I
on a moderate level. Hence the inspiration of the movie,
I also
which is based
feel
on that.
I also feel like Gran Turismo definitely got a lot of people into fucking cars in a
Yeah,
big
I don't
way.
think it does it as much as I don't think it does that as much anymore because I want. This is old man speaking, so audience, please let me know if I'm wrong. A lot of car racing today, is, as far as I can tell, is just Forza Horizon, Mario Kart, and Grand Theft Auto Online. That's not nerding out about cars.
I mean,
Uh, but as a person who is a millennial, I didn't grow up playing Gran Turismo. I grew up playing Forza, and there's a lot of people in around the same age group as me who were like, "Yeah, dude, I play Gran Turismo all the time." And then I actually met a person at a local autocross event. He had a Final Fantasy VII lanyard, and I'm like, I love the lanyard. And it's just cool. Why? Because he had a PlayStation and played Final Fantasy VII and the other ones and Gran Turismo, and he had a Nissan 370Z because he grew up loving Nissans from the game, so he got his own. Like
so
I just kind of feel like, how do you keep young people in cars? I'm just like, well, make awesome movies, make awesome games. Yeah, but racing games it's so dead now.
it's Gran Turismo and then Sims that a lot of people haven't heard of.
It's
Like,
Gran Turismo, Forza Horizon, and really geeky racing sims.
and I think that there is a obvious market for the racing game genre because of the fact that I feel like every year I see some new elaborate sim racing setup that just looks absolutely fucking crazy.
Oh yeah, still cheaper
Um,
than a car though.
it is. Well, I also think that's another problem when it comes to the youths and getting into the car hobby is because it's expensive, man. It is an
Oh
expensive,
yeah,
expensive
it
hobby.
absolutely is. Cars is always expensive no matter what age you are, but it's even kind of like more so now because uh I mean this is probably gonna skew way off the rails into not about the game, but it's just very expensive and they don't make cool cars anymore because people are like, well, nobody buys cool cars. But they try to make one, but when they make a cool car, they put too many features and tech and whatever else into it, and it's a $40,000 car. And please do tell me anyone who's in their 20s who can afford a $40,000 car that doesn't involve an 84-month loan at 20% interest.
Dude, I couldn't
Um,
afford a $40,000 car in my 30s. You
yeah,
know,
I've
Look,
actually met a couple people at my autocross events where they actually do learn on a racing sim, and they just got like a regular normie car that they bring to autocross because that's all they got. But hey, they're gonna work up towards it. But they get to experience something in real life, and they're just ecstatic just to do that.
right.
When you start out, okay, okay, to everyone out there who's a car fan but is nervous that you have to have a Corvette in order to race, you don't need the fastest car to race. You just need something that isn't an SUV or a truck. It just needs to pass a basic safety inspection, meaning the wheels aren't going to fall off and you got working seatbelts and your brakes work. And you can autocross. Like, yeah, at your events, there's going to be a lot of people who have fancy, fast cars, but to be honest, everybody starts somewhere. I just think that a lot of people get too carried away that you have to have a Corvette to even bother showing up and not look stupid. Honestly, we're just happy you even show up.
See, my issue literally is just the wear and tear on the car and the expense of the hobby.
Yeah,
That has always
well,
been my like.
right. Well, here's the
big
thing: autocross,
barrier.
autocross doesn't hurt a car too much because it's just like a 40-second sprint. If you go to a racetrack event, that's a torture chamber for sure. There's so much more preparation. The entry fees are like $250 or more. You gotta plan a hotel. You're likely gonna drive like hundreds of miles away to get there. So
Yeah,
so like an autocross event is like a very good entry point because yeah, you don't get a lot of seat time, but hey, you get like a sanctioned, insured place where you can drive your car very fast. Yeah.
I think that like it. I think that what could make autocross as a whole more popular is if some manufacturer put out a decent $20,000 new car.
Which they don't, and that's the thing is like you want a sporty little car, it's 30 grand.
Yep.
30 grand. So that's brand new and used. Well, the used ones are getting bought up and trashed, so yeah. So it's not exactly ideal. But anyways, yeah, that's the reality of the real world car market. But yeah, like getting young people interested in cars. So like for me, it was for baby boomers, it was movies. The Vanishing Point, Bullet. For Gen Xers and younger, well, it's a lot of it's video games. For me, it was Need for Speed early on. It then became Forza. For a lot of people, it was Gran Turismo. And YouTube doesn't help with this very much too, if I'm honest, because like I think there are a lot of younger people than me, like Gen Z and upcoming Gen Alpha, who do like cars a lot, but I feel like all they're really exposed to is expensive stuff because that's clout, right? Lamborghinis, 1,000 horsepower GTRs, Teslas that cost $40,000, or even if they are depreciated, have like killer insurance and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like, great stuff like Gran Turismo I like because they actually show, hey, here's a small normie car. It doesn't have to be a Ferrari. It doesn't always have to be a Ferrari. Heck, you start out driving a freaking Honda right now. Congrats on the first place, by the way. Getting some experience with that Type R goodness.
Gonna save up to get a Nissan 300ZX.
Nice.
But yeah.
I should do a car podcast one day. I just don't have enough time to do it. Or energy. Just doing too many things at once. Oh my goodness.
So
I just watched a Giants running back just fumble the football out of nowhere.
I've always enjoyed cars from a distance. I know enough about cars, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like very casual observer. I always enjoyed racing games though, sim or arcade. I loved Gran Turismo, I loved PGR. I liked the first 4 Forza games. I still like the Forza Horizon games.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you don't have to be a car nerd to love racing games, because racing games kind of provide it's racing, right? It's a race. And it's probably one of the most understandable races you can do that's fun in video game form that isn't like Olympic sprinting in Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games or something like that.
Right.
But of course, nowadays, a lot of it is just like, take a Ford Raptor and jump it over a volcano with fireworks flying. And,
I think that the arcade games always were a little more popular.
That's what Need for Speed is, Project Gotham Racing. Drive Unlimited.
Yeah, so I think that there was always I think that Gran Turismo for a certain section of the audience, especially younger people, is a harder sell. And then I think that younger people are just not as interested in cars due to the expense. As I talked about earlier, like, I don't know about you, my first car was $500 used. When I bought it, it was 20 years old. It was $500.
Yeah, well, I don't think like media does a very good job promoting cars either.
No.
Because it there's um I don't think they do a very good job promoting like the romantic thing about cars to young people very well because car companies don't have incentive to make cars for young people because young people are broke. So they just continue making cars for older people, and that's why a vast majority of stuff you see now is blobby SUVs. The cars that are cool are toys for millionaires and billionaires.
Well,
So,
how much?
so companies don't really make up for that, and then like you don't have many racing games like you used to in the old days. All you've got is Grand Theft Auto Online. So you would rather best around with Grand Theft Auto Online, and then you have Forza Horizon. And Gran Turismo is probably more for an older demographic at this point. Um, and then you have YouTube culture where nobody wants to watch a video on your boring Nissan Versa.
Well, so
Okay, people want you to do a rebuild of a McLaren that got flooded. People want to watch content on this 1,000 horsepower car, or people want to watch content on this drag race that features 5 cars for a combined net worth of 1.2 million dollars
see,
on a racetrack.
I don't necessarily
It's
believe
just
that.
all high end.
I think that there is definitely a market in the car space for so in the tech space, there's kind of two ends to all content, which is, hey, we built a $5,000 gaming rig that's fully kitted out. Let's fucking really drive it. Or we cooled this thing with liquid nitrogen. Let's see how far we can overclock it, etc., etc. Or on the other side of that, there's the, hey, can we build a gaming PC that's really good for under $600? And I think that you could totally do the latter with cars and make it interesting. I think that.
They
Oh,
did. I just kind of think it's more like an entertainment piece uh than because it's something that I don't know. Somebody younger than me has to explain it. Has to give me their opinion on it. But yeah, it's like the biggest problem, of course, is cost for sure.
yeah, well, yeah, and that's
And COVID messed everything up. Now nowadays, like prices are starting to come down, but of course, like people
well,
are also starting to lose
le-
their jobs, so like that's a little worrying.
like okay. So when I think of like entry level sports car, I think of a V6 Charger or like a 4-cylinder Mustang. And
Yeah, yeah.
how much is is a 4-cylinder Mustang now, even a used one?
If you get a 2015 or 2016, so they're four-cylinder turbos with 300 horsepower, which is quite a lot in my opinion. Like you're not gonna win any like clout contest, but you still got 300 horsepower. That can still get you going 145 miles an hour if you want to go to jail.
I mean that
Um,
yeah, I totally haven't
Used
taken the
ones with
Charger
medium
up to
miles,
145.
17 grand. I think 17, 18 grand.
That's
It's a
that's
lot.
that's a lot, but it's actually not as bad as I thought it would be.
Well, it's the
Sadly.
insurance that kills you.
Well,
And
yes,
it's
when
also
you're
the old Mustang, but
well,
it's also the insurance that kills you.
well, yeah, like I bought a 7-year-old Charger when I was 26, and I remember going to get it insured, and
You're
the
racing the bloody pace car? What the hell? That makes no sense. Sorry.
um but I remember going to get it insured, and at the time I had State Farm for the Blazer, so I was like, oh, I'll just stick with them. And I kid you not, they're like, yeah, the payments for full coverage on it are gonna be $300 a month, and I'm like, that's more than the car payment, And they're like, their legitimate reason was young man in a sports car, and I'm like, it's a sedan. The hell are you
It's a
on?
sedan with the same horse. It's the same horsepower and weight as a minivan.
Yeah, what are
It
you?
just looks fast. It just isn't.
Like, I mean, granted, you can get it going up to 150. I have,
Sure.
but like, it's one of those things where just like I couldn't believe it. So I went to get it, but so yeah. Now, granted, I shopped around. I was able to get it down to like 165, which that was a lot better. But you're paying at that point. I was paying. Let's see, the car payment was 290. So yeah, you're paying like almost yeah, about $450 plus gas for your getting around mobile, and and yeah, you'll have fun with it for sure. But I think it's just for a lot of people, it's oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Oh, it's understeering. It's understeering. Doesn't want to turn.
Um,
Yeah, it's just in the 2010s, you could probably get into a car. Like, yeah, economically, probably wasn't, still trying to climb out of a hole, but, it was fine. And you can find some pretty decent deals on old stuff on Craigslist. But nowadays, like, more performance because they don't build as many performance cars, or the ones they do build are just so expensive that, and all the old used ones are getting bought up and trashed. So it's just not a good setup.
right.
And then you also kind of have, like, we live in an age where, in the old days, for a very long time, having a car was considered a big step because you can drive anywhere, you can go to the theater, you can go to, you can go places. The problem is, as you get older, with all this technology now, the statistics show that teenagers are less interested in getting their driver's license. Aw, you
Oh,
gotta stop
come
in the whole
on.
box. Try again. Whole
Lame.
car has to be in the box, man.
Anyway, well, yeah, and I think that there's just less spaces for teenagers these days to go do stuff that don't cost a ton of money. Like, if you're a teenager, you're not gonna be waking up to go to the earliest showing of a movie. So, you're looking at $12 for tickets, $8 for popcorn, a $6 drink. So going to a movie is like a $30 endeavor for a teenager.
Hey, you got a silver.
Hell yeah.
Look,
Uh,
your crew cheering you on as you drive that little French thing.
yep, yep.
But yeah, so I think that, cars are expensive, and I don't know if it's getting better or worse. Prices are very slowly going down, but who knows?
Yeah.
But I will say though that, like, one of the reasons why a lot of people get into cars is media.
Hmm.
Again, for baby boomers and some Gen Xers, it's movies. For people like me, it was video games. My
Mm.
first ever video game was Need for Speed 3 that my dad bought for me. Had the big Lamborghini Diablo SV in yellow right on the front. Oh, Viper has no brakes.
Ah, damn. Um. No, I remember my dad. Funnily enough, my first racing game that I played was Cruising the USA, and then
Oh yeah, I remember that.
F1 pole position. So those were the two that stand out in my mind as being like, oh yeah, these got me into the genre. And then racing is inherently competitive, and I've always had a little bit of a
Break.
competitive. No, that was so much worse.
Yeah. See,
Um,
that's not you. That's not you running a red light. That is you, like, T-boning the building at full speed.
yeah. Yeah. So I really and I actually heard Gran Turismo described perfectly to me once. Is it's one man's mission to onboard you onto cars as a hobby.
I wonder how well the distance perception is on this one. Nope. Keep going. Break. Break.
I'll take it. I'll
Yeah.
take it.
All right. All right. All right.
Um. Oh lordy. Yeah, I'm curious to see if racing games ever come back, because another big thing about racing games, for the longest time they were like the tech benchmark for a console,
And
right?
it was very easy to market them too. They were
Yeah.
easily marketable. They were good tech. They're the principle of making them fun is actually not that hard. Although I would argue that they don't know how to do that anymore.
Well,
I am very impressed that in Gran Turismo 4 they actually, on convertible cars, they actually drop the tops. You could actually see all the animation of the driver sitting in it.
So I think back to like when the PS2 launched, like one of the big games showing off, look how much better this looks, was Gran Turismo 3. And I remember very similar when the Xbox launched, it was Project Gotham 1. And then like in the early days of the 360 it was PGR 3, and I realize this is not a realistic car game at all, but in the early days of PS3 it was like MotorStorm. Like up until the PS4 generation, it was very much. I have no idea what this test is. Oh, well, we're gonna find out. Don't hit a cone.
Let's
Got
go
it.
exit and then read it.
Okay. Oh, I see. No, it does look like it's get to the end without hitting a cone. I don't know how the fuck you're gonna do that, but all right. Well, whatever. We'll figure
Oh,
it out.
goodbye, clutch. Gran Turismo is really unforgiving about the fact that if you even so much as accidentally touch a cone,
Which is weird
it's
because like
over.
in the older ones, not in the newer ones. The newer ones they fixed this, but in the older ones, you just like bump into people, use giant shortcuts, like it was like whoa, 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 whoa.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Oh yeah,
whoa.
we're oh
Oh,
fuck,
come on.
damn it. Wait, do we need to time it to get bronze? Oh, there's no timer
No,
for bronze.
you
Oh
just
well.
need to make it to the end without hitting something
Oh, okay, yeah.
or touching a cone. Fun fact, in autocross, we have a cone killer award because a cone is a 1 second penalty and sometimes drivers like just flat out murder a cone. That was pretty fun, entertaining. And it's a plus 1 second penalty if you knock one out of the box or knock it over.
Hey, we did it. Hello?
Fully stop. There we go.
But yeah, so
You're not last on the leaderboard, so that's good.
I'm pretty close.
Look, you're not last. You're fine.
Yeah, so I think that so yeah, and I think part of that is just like I think the generational jumps in racing games are still there. Like I saw that 4K raw footage they put out of GT7 on a PS5 Pro with full ray tracing. I was like, yeah, damn, that does look better. That looks real pretty. Um, but like on the other side of that, it's just not as huge of like a jump.
Yeah,
You
but the
know?
time it takes is so much more.
Well, yeah, like
Um,
I fully think the reason
yeah.
why that we're not like we may not be seeing an exclusive GT to PlayStation 5. Like if we do, it's gonna be right at the end of its life, like right at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. But like racing games, yeah, it's just racing games aren't that big anymore. I think like car companies back in the day probably just like, yeah, sure, we'll license the car. They might have a condition or two. Like in Need for Speed 3 and 4, you can't run from the cops in a Ferrari. Um, because the agreement, whatever agreement happened. But in the case of but the thing is, like racing games, is I think there's like a bit of a struggle because when they do racing games, I feel like everybody just tunnel visions into and doesn't really understand why
God
racing games
damn
are
it.
fun. They just tunnel vision into, okay, we need to make a big world or something like that, have all the hottest cars, get the latest Lamborghinis and everything like that, and then they wonder why the game kind of isn't like celebrated.
So
I
I
feel like racing games have like fallen into two camps. Either is like off the walls, kind of absurd, but kind of unremarkable at the same time, or they try to do the simulation thing. And the thing is, like sim racing is growing. Like a lot of people are buying wheeled setups, but you're also buying wheeled setups, and it's kind of geeky.
I
And there's a lot of knowledge to be had in it. Like,
but I also think that those wheeled setups could potentially be a stepping point into the broader hobby.
yeah,
I now on the other side of that, I do think that, um, you know, there needs to be more racing games, and I do see. Oh shit.
Ooh,
Uh,
nice save.
I do see potential for the genre to come back. I actually looked. I think that there's going to be a tech case for it soon. And then I think genres tend to rotate. I think that it's been a while since. Oh, I think the last time racing games were like kind of big was like the late 2010s. Like no, sorry, not late 2010s, the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah, everything is kind of a lot of things have stagnated since. With
Yeah.
the exception of Horizon. Horizon was probably that one big one that became very popular. And actually, as far as I could tell, like I've been seeing some posts on Facebook or something like that where people just like RP in Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they would pretend, they would pretend car meets or oil changes or dyno runs or that kind of stuff. Which, I actually did that in Need for Speed Underground too, actually, a little bit. It's fun. Yeah, the progression. Racing games make for great progression too. Like they just kind of have it all. Like you can push the tech. There's a sense of competition. There's a sense of progression because you
Mm-hmm.
can modify the car or buy a faster car and you work towards the dream car. And I think that's kind of one of the pitfalls of like current day racing games. They give you the Ferrari after 30 minutes.
Well, like that's one thing that I
Like
always
you've been
liked.
playing this for 45 minutes and we're still driving small cars. Now
That's
people are like, I just want the Lamborghini be over with, and I'd be like, there is a racing game for that. It's Need for Speed and Project Gotham.
that
Um,
that's one thing that I always really liked about early Gran Turismo and even PGR, but especially Gran Turismo, is the upgrade process where it was just like, okay, I'd buy my shitty Honda and then I'd be able to buy a used 1990Z and then I'd pimp that out and and then I could buy a Charger and then that would lead into a Ford GT and then that would lead into the Ferrari. Well, not the Ferrari in Gran Turismo's case, but like in Forza's case.
yeah,
So like it was one of those
and
things
it was like
where.
and it was a great appreciation of cars because like obviously a lot of people are just be like, I just want to drive the Lamborghini, and that's fine.
Mm,
But in like racing games, you kind of create this great sense of progression because where it's like, look, you can enjoy small cars too. You don't have to. A lot of people think that the only car that can go fast is a Corvette. Well, let me tell you, at the autocross events, about once or twice a year, I take my Chevy Impala and I autocross it. And my mission is to raw time as many cars as I can. I actually finished about mid pack or just below mid pack in raw time
mm,
in a 3,800 pound V6 Chevy Impala. That is
mm.
not a sporty trim at all. It is a comfy highway cruiser. So, so, but that's not what most people do, but that's a very outlier case for sure. But it's like you don't have to have the fast car until like yeah, racing games have such good like progression. Like, that's what they did in the old days all the time. They always gave you the small car, whether it's in Need for Speed. In Need for Speed, when you start out with the bottom base car, which in Need for Speed for high stakes, you get to pick between a Z3 or Mercedes SLK. 200 horsepower convertibles. You don't start with the Ferrari. Whereas like nowadays, you get gifted a Ferrari in like 15 minutes or something because they want to get you hyped right away. But the problem is that you just hyped the person right away and you just burned up your. I mean, once you have the Ferrari, is there anything to work for?
Um, I mean, like, I think that one thing that I feel is actually almost missed, and this is me appealing to the demon business monster of the game industry, is like, I feel like car games are like a perfect fucking nightmare to have pay to win mechanics. Like, I really do. I really look at like that kind of game and go, man, you'd be able to put so much goddamn pay to win in that.
And
Holy
they did.
hell.
They kind of did. And then that became like, well, if everybody's just gonna pay to win, we might as well just give you a free Ferrari right away.
I mean,
Um,
fair.
I mean, I don't know. If I were to sit down and type out a design proposal for a racing game, I could do one pretty easily. I don't know if it's good, Probably not good, but you know.
So yeah, I think that it's one of those things where, um, you know, it's one of those things where like I could see the genre come back, but it would require the genre to be a lot more interesting, and I don't know how you make Sims interesting. It's the same thing with like sports sims, right? Like I love
Yeah.
me some sports sims when they're good, but it's really hard. And now, granted, I think the market for like football and baseball is bigger than the market for autocross, or
Or just racing in general.
or racing in general.
Yeah,
But
it's just that racing is an international sport,
yeah,
and it has big presence in many countries. I don't watch it, so I can't really say I can't really comment on what international sports should and shouldn't do as far as their coverage.
well,
But the thing was is that but the thing was is like in the old days, to sell that a car is awesome, you raced. And as a company, if you win races, you look pretty damn good, right? You are a company that wins races, therefore your engineering is better and all that kind of fun stuff. You know, win on Sunday, sell on Monday is the old saying. The thing is though is that nowadays car companies find that they don't need to race anywhere near as much to sell a car. Um, so racing internationally has gotten so astronomically expensive that the only ones that get broadcast regularly is probably Formula One and NASCAR in the US. Um, and NASCAR, I think people have been arguing about whether it's relevant or not for a while now, for a very
well,
long while.
it's the problem that like, so I'm a big North American football fan, and North American football is nowhere near as big as basketball or soccer in, oh fuck, I fucked up some card. Nowhere near as big as soccer or baseball or basketball internationally. And the reason that is because football is a fucking expensive sport. You have like 14 coaches, you have that, and you have 53 players on a roster. That means helmets, pads. It's a game where the field needs to be a lot better taken care of than most other games, and that does include soccer. And it's just expensive, So it's really hard for like countries that are on like the poor end of things to be really interested in football. That's honestly kind of like, I was actually kind of shocked when I found out the NFL was catching on in Brazil. Um, and I think that and to be fair, Brazil is a country that just loves sports. They love them.
Well, so obviously their soccer, football
Yes.
teams is very good. Historically, very good. Ayrton Senna, one of the most famous motorsport racers of all time, he's from
Mhm.
Brazil. So yeah, they're huge in sports for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, but like I think I think with a lot of things with car and racing games come back to this. One is a lot of them want to have licensed cars, and that's super expensive, and they also have like really specific
Yeah, and car
requirements.
companies are a lot more aware about video games these days. Uh, and you can't get them all.
Right.
Uh, it's just the setup is not very good. You can use made up cars, but at that point you're looking at an arcade racer because people want to drive the real thing. They want to aspire to the real thing, of course. Um, yeah, licensing is really difficult, and then you have cases like throughout the 2010s, EA signed an exclusivity deal with Porsche, so no racing game could have Porsches in it, and all EA did was shove Porsches into Need for Speed games, and that's it. Like one or two. That was really lame.
So
Um,
we'll take one quick dip into arcade mode and then we'll call it.
yeah.
Um,
But we haven't commented much on this game, but um, we haven't commented too much on this game. But yeah, it's kind of a little hard for me to talk about because it's Gran Turismo.
yeah,
The one thing, the biggest thing I could comment on was the card list. Hey, look at all these different little variations between cars. Look at the variety of cars we have. And 7 has a lot of variety of cars, but it's not like. But the thing is, they're like people are like, yeah, but where's this car, this car, this car, this car, this car? In this game, you get quite a lot of it from Japan and a few from the rest of the world.
Well, yeah, I think that one thing that was interesting about this game is and all the Gran Turismos prior to 5 is Ferrari and Lambo largely were not in them. Not something that was in them. It was very very strange. Like that they had a lot of cars, but it felt like the manufacturers list was kind of small by comparison.
Well, again, they threw in like 20 or 30 Nissan Skyline GTRs.
Yeah, because that's what you want. I guess we'll do. Let's see if it'll.
Yeah, see, you only have like 5 Fords to pick from.
Well,
You
this
gotta pick
isn't
up
all.
you-
This isn't all of them. You have to unlock more over time. So,
Okay.
you know,
Let's just drive the GT.
see,
the Mustang
Mustang
GT.
GT. Okay. Actually, no. I'm gonna drive one of those. See what we got here.
Dodge Neon.
Dodge Charger. Well, the old
That
one.
thing won't turn.
Neither will this, but let's do it anyway.
It'll turn slightly better.
All right. So, for a PS2 game, this game looked really good for the time. Like it was
This
one
is
of
one of
those.
those games that's a little bit hard to go back to because they iterated on it. So you can get like a very similar feel that's even better in GT 7, really. Yeah. The only thing you're really missing out on is kind of the variety of the car list that it has here. Because the thing is that in Gran Turismo Sport, they focused a lot on motorsports, of course, hence the name. A lot of people were very unhappy with the initial car list in Sport because it didn't include a lot of the cars people wanted. Even though they tried to tell people, guys, this is about sport. This is for GT Academy. This is focusing on motorsport. You know, cars that, go to GT racing and all that kind of stuff in the real world. But people, when they buy a Gran Turismo game, are expecting Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Skyline GTRs, Ford GTs, Maseratis. And so when they didn't see a Skyline, everyone got really pissed off. And Polyphony had to emergency make those cars and throw them in. But Gran Turismo Sport was not a traditional Gran Turismo game, so when they did 7, they brought all the cars from I think they brought all the cars from Sport into 7. So even though it has a pretty sizable car list, a lot of it is GT racers and that kind of stuff, which I guess is kind of the point, right? You want to get people interested in motorsports in the real world because it's been waning for a very long time.
Yes.
Because compared to stuff like football, motorsports is a big deal, but for how much money they spend, the viewer base might not be anywhere near the size that you would think.
Well, yeah, the viewer base is smaller. It's harder to get into. Like, the reality is like if you are if you're a teenager and you want to get into football, you pick up a football and throw it around with your friends, and then join your high school team when you're old enough. If your parents got some money, they can throw you in a program like a Pop Warner. To get into autocross, especially even as a teenager, you're dropping, let's say you had a cheap car and trick it out, you're probably dropping 15K minimum. You gotta have a license. You gotta be insured. The barrier to entry is just so high, and I feel like games and whatnot helped with that. Like in the past, the barrier to entry was lower, and then
that's what I do with flight simulators.
Yeah.
Right, because one time I wanted to be a pilot. I gave up on that because I realized that once I go through flight school, I was taking a huge risk that I didn't want to. Yeah, Viper goes off road. And so I
Nope.
decided, you know what? I don't want to be a pilot. I'm just gonna make it a lot easier for myself and just do it in a flight sim. And so, like as the years go on, the tech got a lot better. Where you have payware where you can buy planes that are simulated as closely to the real world counterparts as possible. Um, and it's great. Um, and I don't have to worry about going to flight school and spending tens of thousands of dollars making that happen.
Yeah,
Man, dude, you gotta slow down. You picked a really twisty course for this Viper, which is not what it's good at.
I mean, but I'm playing GT4, so I can just bounce off the walls with no consequence.
So Forza Motorsport 2 had a commercial that made fun of that.
That's I did not know that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
they did. I'll probably link it to you later.
Um,
They were making fun of, Gran Turismo not having damage. Mind you, this is Forza Motorsport 2. This came out in 2006, I believe.
2007. It was May '07.
Okay, I got my Xbox for that fall, and yeah, their commercial pretty much made fun of Gran Turismo's lack of realism because what does the tagline of Gran Turismo say?
The real driving simulator.
What's so real about bouncing off walls and having no damage?
Right, and yeah, like that was a big complaint with the series, which is why when it was like the damage in 5 was so limited, people were very upset. Because
Well,
it's like,
yeah, Gran Turismo 5 it did specific things really well, but it was also very archaic in other areas.
um, so yeah, like, and playing this game, I am actually kind of impressed in some regard at the sense of speed, the replay options, the just amount of stuff. Like it's a very good game, and you can definitely tell it doesn't have the modern day Forza problem or even the Forza 2 problem of all the cars feeling kind of the same. Like even in this game, as early as it is in the franchise, uh, and on the PS2 of all things, all the cars I used all felt different. Not to the extent of where they do in 5 or onward, but like they all felt different. So, yeah, no, GT4. It's like obviously it is a 20 or 19, almost 20-year-old video game, but on the other side of that, it's fucking sick. The game holds up really well. So yeah, I'm gonna pull up the list of our current PS2 rankings. Actually, I forgot I put it in a Google sheet now. Hold on. I apologize. Or a Google Doc. I apologize, everyone. I moved that off of that notepad file. That's my bad. You there, Mr. Ta?
Yeah, I am here.
Alright, so we have our current list. It's up on the screen now. Um, looking at this list, I definitely think it's in the top 6. I would probably put it above San Andreas, below Psychonauts.
I was thinking the same thing. So yeah,
Um,
like the thing about struggling is that we're considering Gran Turismo for today, right?
yes.
7 provides a very similar experience and is far more modern.
It's yes, which to be fair, a lot of these games have that issue. Like Ultimate Spider-Man, by the standards of the time, it was absolutely incredible. But yeah, compared to Spider-Man 2 or even Spider-Man 1, it was a very rough product. And then on the other side of that, like same thing, that's partly why Burnout 3 is on top of the list. Playing Burnout 3 today is just as good as it was 20 years ago.
Right. But that's what
You know,
happens when you have like a franchise that iterates,
yeah.
which Gran Turismo does do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked at that Gran Turismo and I'm like, yeah, you know what? It basically looks, well, as much as I could feel from watching it on the screen. It looks like Gran Turismo. It sounds like Gran Turismo. It seems to play very much like Gran Turismo. It functions like Gran Turismo. It's Gran Turismo. But we have 7 now. Looks a lot better. Has a little bit more thought to various stuff. Like, yeah, you don't have like quite the same variety of poverty spec cars and pleb cars, but the entire rest of the experience is pretty much the same. And you get photoscape, take
Yes.
gorgeous pictures with your virtual cars. And so like, why play this today when you can just play seven?
I think
Um,
this game did have a photo mode, but it's definitely not nearly as advanced. And
oh yeah,
I
oh
think
yeah.
that it's a nostalgia thing, really. It's mostly nostalgia, and that's kind of the hard part, and that's kind of how I feel about San Andreas.
Yeah, but we also have to consider the cultural impact of it, and of course, but it's not like it's not the first game, it's not the third game.
Yes,
This
like
is
it.
like this is kind of like what six was to five, although maybe that's not fair to four when I put it that way, because Gran Turismo 6 is probably a little better as a game than Gran Turismo 5, but Gran Turismo 5 was the one that kind of was the first. It was the one that pushed it far forward
Well, so like
into PS3 stuff.
I I think that GT4 was at the time the first Gran Turismo that felt like kind of a neutral step or a backslide. Because it was a great game, but like you compared it to its contemporaries of even the time. Like I said, came out the first Forza came out a couple months later, and it was better in almost every regard except for the core driving model. The upgrades were better. It was more fine tuned. It was better for onboarding new players into driving games. It was just better. It was just a better experience in almost every regard, and it had online. Which is partly why Forza as a franchise really blew up. Um, but like even with all that though, this game still holds up and it is a lot of fun. It's just it
Yeah, it holds up very well. It's just that you can buy a newer version that iterates quite a lot more.
which almost makes me want to put it below Jack and Daxter. And in hindsight, after playing a couple of games later on this list, I almost want to move Jack and Daxter up a little bit, but I'm gonna save that from when I revisit it. Cause Jack and Daxter still totally holds up. That feels like a modern day platformer. Um, yeah, I'd probably put it below Psychonauts. Put it below Psychonauts for now. All right. Gran Turismo 4. Some point we'll go check out 3.
Imagine that's more of the same actually.
That one was interesting because it like came out so early in the console's life. Like that thing didn't even come out a year into the PS2's life. It was very fascinating, and it was like this just massive tech leap. Like there's always the talk about 2D to 3D. Um, comment in the chat. Hold on. Hey, have you guys thought about Neopet's PS2 game, lol, The Darkest Fairy? So, when we collected games for this series, I asked pretty much everyone I knew who had even touched a PS2 what their favorite PS2 game was. And this is the list that we have. And then I snagged a couple of extras that I thought would be fun or funny. So Neopets will have to be a down the road 175 games ranked later type of thing. Unless obviously there's a bunch of demand for it, like everyone, all 90 people in the Discord are like, yeah, do the Neopets game. I asked you. You said Onimusha. You said the Onimusha game. Onimusha 2, I believe. You said an Onimusha game. I definitely asked you though. So yeah, no, it was So yeah, it was one of those things where we do have Onimusha. Um, I think we also grabbed Bloody Roar because of you as well. Anthony. What'd you suggest? I know you suggested
I
the
said
two.
I said Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2, but then I realized, oh crap, Most Wanted was on there also,
I got both.
and
I
Spy
grabbed both,
Hunter, and Spy Hunter.
and I also grabbed Spy Hunter, and then I also.
I
Oh
noticed that somebody mentioned Driver, like the third Driver game, and I was like quite surprised by that. Um,
yeah. Um.
so yeah.
Yeah. That we have a hell of a list here. The fact that I was able to pull 175 games and I was still getting suggestions and had to tell people, please stop for a little bit. Tells you everything about the library. Yeah, you were the Spyro that entered the Dragonfly, and you were not the only one who requested Ratchet and Clank, though. That was a lot of people. A lot of people asked for Ratchet and Clank. I think consistently the most popular games I got, like the ones that the most people said to put on the list, were Kingdom Hearts 2. That multiple people asked for that one. Tons of people asked for Grand Theft Auto Vice City, not San Andreas. A lot of people asked for God of War. A lot of people asked for Persona 4. Um, what else was big? I'm trying to think. Got a handful of people asking for Final Fantasy X. It definitely was on the more popular side of things. So, yeah, no, there was just a lot, man. I spent a good like full day acquiring games through alternative means. You know, so yeah, no, it's yeah. And I was surprised at some games. Let me tell you, Anthony. When someone was like, "My favorite game is Dynasty Warriors 4," I was like, "All right then." That was not what I was expecting. I was really expecting to
I
hear
mean, that's
this.
what happens when you have like a really, really diverse game library.
Well, yeah, like the PS2 was like the default console back then for most people, and I feel like um, I thought I was gonna get like the same 40 games. So like when I had people dropping like I really loved Shinobi, I really loved Psyops and whatnot. It was very interesting. And I'm looking forward to deep dive into more of these. I don't know what we're gonna be doing next week. I'm leaning towards one of the God of War games. Every time I boot up the emulator here, I like stare at God of War 1 and 2 and I'm like, soon. But I also haven't done a sports game yet, like a traditional sports game, not a racing game. And I feel like this is something that is really missed in the from the PS2 era. Is, man, Anthony, arcade sports games were awesome. Like legitimately, like
But you have
NFL,
like stuff, yeah, NBA Street. Yeah, I see
NF,
it there.
yeah, NFL Street and NFL Blitz. Like Downhill Domination, SSX Tricky, like arcade sports games were so goddamn good and they just disappeared overnight. Um anyway, we're going to review the list, wrong list, one more time and then I think we'll call it a night. Sound good?
All right.
So, our PS2 game rankings. Number 13 is Pimp My Ride Street Racing. That was a big pile of trash. Number
That
two,
sounds like a pretty standard licensed game based on
uh,
TV or movie thing.
number 12, Yu Yu Hakusho Ghost Files Dark Tournament. A slightly less rancid pile of trash. Um, the Herbs Sims in the City.
Is this The Sims but like trendy?
Yeah, it's like hipster The Sims and on console.
But this is the 2000s. The hipsters didn't exist yet.
Okay, proto hipster The Sims on console.
Okay.
So, 10 was Killzone. Killzone is a game that feels old as hell, even by the time in which it came out, and the additional context of it being the Halo killer, launching a couple of weeks before Halo 2, was hilarious then, and it's even more hilarious now. 9, Sonic Heroes, the start of Sonic's descent into hell, and he really has only come up for air a couple of times. 8, Ultimate Spider-Man. So that one we're gonna definitely revisit. We had some technical problems with the emulator, but the game is great regardless. 7, True Crime Streets of LA. It's a GTA clone with Kung Fu. Uh, I'm gonna be real. It kind of felt like someone made a Sleeping Dogs prototype. Um, Jack and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy. That game is great, especially when you upscale it. If you haven't played it and you like platformers Which I know Steph in the chat said she likes Ratchet and Clank and Spyro. I definitely think you would like Jack and Daxter. 5, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. It has not aged great, but it is an all-time classic. And it does have some really fun stuff in it. And it was kind of like one of the first games to get a ton of celebrity voice actors. Like, I'm not sure if you know this, Anthony, but Samuel L. Jackson is in that game.
Okay.
Yeah, he's Officer Tenpenny, a wildly corrupt cop. Um, Ari played it and enjoyed it. I'd be down for it one day. Right on. I'm getting Tim set up with that emulator, so you know. 4, Gran Turismo 4. We went over today. 3, Psychonauts. That game holds up almost perfectly, other than some weird directional stuff. Guitar Man, same thing. Like it's absolutely fantastic, but very weird. And number 1 is Burnout 3 Takedown because I feel like if you were to put fresh graphics on that game and put it out today, it would still be a 10 out of 10 video game. It is so good. The soundtrack, the gameplay, the controls, everything about Burnout 3 Takedown continues to be just fucking incredible. So yeah, that's where we're at. We'll be back hopefully next week. We love you guys. We're gonna be doing Friday Night Fights tomorrow, since Aaron is back from his travels to Montana and California. And then Sunday is the podcast. Anthony, you got anything you want to say to the lovely people before we leave?
Unfortunately, I don't have much to say, but other than thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed
Bye.
our speculative industry analysis on why young people don't get into cars and all that stuff.
Also, if you're on the YouTube and you have somehow made it all the way to the end of the video, like, subscribe, comment. It helps the giant Google computer god get us out into the world. Yeah.
Helps us please the algorithm.
Yes, exactly. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.